A while ago, I did a video where I talked about the difference between an old nigga and an elder. And today I want to elaborate on that by talking about whether or not the old niggas have an ego problem. I'm your host, Cool Colas, and you are now tuning into a new video on my channel. So let's go ahead and get into it. The difference between an old nigga and an elder is that an elder describes an older black person who specifically gives out wisdom and also tangibles. That's the key thing y'all need to remember in order to continue a thriving and surviving legacy. And as a result of doing such things, they are deserving of respect. A great example of this is Dr. Claude Anderson. As far as old Negroes go, an old Negro is somebody who is simply a person who aged out and just got older. They're not necessarily a wise person. A lot of times this person's a damn fool. And even often, I'll take it a step further, this person is a Sambo or a Sambet, but they're just old as hell. And a lot of times they like to masquerade themselves as an actual elder. Now I want to be clear, there's like three different things going on, right? You have elders, old niggas, and then you have old niggas pretending to be elders, or you have old niggas with elder-ish moments that make you think that they're deserving of full respect, when a lot of times they're just individuals who really are selfish as hell and just try to say things in order to maintain the respect that you've given them. When I talk about the old Negroes, I'm specifically talking about the civil rights generation. And I want to give you all a definition of that because I don't want you all to start acting fake confused in the comments like you were last time when I made this damn video. But I'm specifically talking about individuals who are within that, some of that silent generation and then the baby boomer generation. So we're talking about some of the black silent generation and some of the black baby boomers, for those of you all who are trying to understand who I'm specifically talking about. Now, a lot of you all are probably wondering why I call them the old Negroes. And I've explained this before, so I'll just give you the Cliff Notes version of what I've talked about in the past. The old Negroes are called this because they have sold out their kids, their grandkids, and any other future generations of people in their bloodline to come. And the reason why they did this is because they are selfish. They only cared about reaping the benefits of the dominant society and getting benefits specifically for themselves. So they had no interest in empire building and doing things that would actually be tangible for their own bloodline, let alone the black community as a whole. And you can even see that this behavior is still a thing even in 2025 because these old bastards aren't even in political positions that can help black people to get tangible things popping. So for example, yeah, you may not want to fight in the front lines if it comes down to, fighting for your rights and stuff like that, like they were doing back, in the day when they were fighting during the civil rights time period. But you could have your old ass in some type of political agenda where you're able to maybe advocate for reparations, for, laws that protect black people so that they're not basically knocked off by race soldiers. These are all things that could happen, but these Negroes only care about one simple thing. They care about two simple things. One, praying to God for a better tomorrow, and then making sure that they browbeat you every chance they get when it's time to vote, making sure you vote for the Democrats so they can continue to get their prescription at Walgreens. My point in saying all that is that they are really hell-bent on continuing to have the life that they have not change. They don't want the boat to be rocked. They don't want any stasis to be changed. They don't want anything with what they may get, what they may benefit from. They don't want any of that to actually change for themselves. So now that they're getting older, they really want you to just be cool, keep your head down, and not fight back against anything. And so that leads into my next point, and one of the things that I find to be the most disappointing about the old Negroes. The old Negroes are a big disappointment because they are terrible leaders. They're individuals who say, don't do this or do that, but they don't tell you actually how to do things. As a matter of fact, when you mess things up, they'll be the first to tell you, well, I could have told you that. Then why didn't you, nigga? But no, on a serious note, my point here is that when it comes to the old Negroes, these are individuals who are deeply selfish. They did not have any intention to teach you things that would help you in dealing with the dominant society or real skills that would help you to actually, again, carry on a legacy or build an empire. So they didn't have a plan for you. Another thing that I've talked about before in the past is that they have this thing that I call the Black Promised Land agenda. And how this works is you have these old Negroes who will send all of their kids to college. So for example, if you have like black baby boomer parents and things like that, you already know kind of how this goes. Send them to college, tell them to try to get the American dream and all this other stuff. The kid comes out with a bunch of debt. They have to find a job to be able to pay off that debt, because let's be real, it ain't all these black people going in getting a bunch of scholarships and all this other stuff. We're already starting at zero or in the negatives compared to our white and non-black counterparts. So that's already a thing. And then they just simply don't have a plan for you. But here's the thing. They expect you, as an opposite effect type of thing, to have a plan for them. They want you to go to school, figure the shit out on your own, throw you in the water and expect you to swim. And then whatever you figure out while you're in college or whatever, whenever you get your first job or you hit it off big, whatever that is. And they expect you to take that money and then take care of the whole family. So they're basically sending you to college, hopefully as their meal ticket. I kind of only covered the surface of the Black Promised Land agenda, but it can go even deeper. The worst of them will literally get their kids into sports while they're in high school, and they'll try to push them to become an athlete in college, maybe even get a full ride scholarship to whatever school that they go to. And then when they go there, they get a bunch of money once they hit the pros and that type of thing, although it's such a small amount of people who actually do make it to the pros in a lot of these different sports. And then they hope that they'll take that money and they'll go back and they'll feed the family. So a lot of times they treat their child not just like they're a meal ticket, but also like they're really a lottery ticket. Because again, these Negroes didn't have no plan. So they're just expecting you to figure it out. And then once you figure it out, you take care of them just because they birthed you. Although one of the biggest problems that the old Negroes have is that they're selfish. One of the things that I also noticed that I think a lot of people are not talking about when it comes to these fools is the fact that they are also egomaniacs. And I want to give you all a few examples of how this has shown up and why I would say that. A lot of times when it comes to these old Negroes, they seem to be the problem in a lot of different systematic things that they're in control of. So whether it's a business, whether it's the church, whatever it is, that I see a lot of ego, and that ego does not allow them to actually make moves that are productive. So I think about that and I'm like, ain't that about a bitch? I mean, you literally have the nerve to be selfish as hell and then have the audacity to be egotistical, like you actually did some fly shit. Just to piggyback off those examples, you have old Negroes who are in the church. Now, everybody has different opinions on how they feel about religion, the church, and whatnot in the black community. Everybody is kind of all over the place when it comes to that type of thing, right? But one of the things that I'm noticing about myself, and I've also noticed with a lot of other black men, especially who I've had a conversation with, it's not the fact that the religion is necessarily the problem in some cases, or the Bible itself, although there are some things that are questionable. I think what people tend to have a problem with is the leadership that is within the church. Because let's be real, churches are run by a bunch of old Negroes who are egotistical, set in their ways, and also too do not want to do things that are actually beneficial to the black community. And I recently sat down and had a conversation with a brother who's really deep into the church about this type of thing. And he actually agreed with me on a lot of the things that I actually said. But one of the things that I was saying to him was that there's so many things that the church could do for black people, because this is the single biggest area where black people congregate to basically be around each other. And then again, in this case, to worship God. And there's so many things that the church could do for the black community because of all the money that they rake in and all the black people they're able to gather as a result of saying that they're doing something that's positive. So when you put that into perspective, you would think that this would be a great entity to do something that's actually tangible and do something that's actually constructive, but it isn't. And the reason why it's not that way is because you have a bunch of old Negroes who are running these churches. They have big time egos, and they're really big into, for example, collecting money for themselves, or the things that they're doing are not actually productive to the black community. And what's interesting is that my understanding was that a lot of Christians or people who are just in the church have an obligation to be able to serve people and to do good for the community. Yet and still, they are typically churches with nothing but black people, but still don't truly serve black people. So there's a contradiction and it creates hypocrisy. And that's because you have old Negro leadership who has an iron fist in what actually is happening there, because there's so many things that they could do with the money that they earn from the people who come to church and actually put money in the collection plate every Sunday. I mean, think about it. Churches could do tons of things with the money that they receive from a lot of the individuals who come and they worship every single Sunday and throw money in the collection plate. I mean, black churches could literally build black hospitals, because, black women, who are their biggest customer base, are getting harmed like shit in regular hospitals, and they could create hospitals where they're actually protected and they get the care that they deserve. Since again, they're their biggest customer base. They could build schools, or they could even have sessions like where they could teach kids or their youth members skills so they actually can go out there and do something that's constructive. They could have black owned banks. They could have all types of institutions and businesses that actually are beneficial to the community and can create jobs and opportunities for the community. But this is something that is not regularly done. And do you know why? That's because old Negroes are leading it. And the other thing is, a lot of times these Negroes be Democratic shilling like hell. I mean, I've even talked to a pastor who just sat around, like, he was an old Negro as well too. And he sat around and he told me, that Joe Biden, he's not such a bad guy. Literally said that right to my face. So I already know that they're like this. And I'm not just using one example to make it seem like, it's just, the thing that I've experienced. This is a common thing. There's a lot of Democratic shilling in the church in general. I mean, think about it. You have all of these churches that are supposed to be conservative, like there's supposed to be a bunch of conservative values with people who are typically religious, yet and still most of the people who are within the church are actually Democratic. So I find that very interesting. And I didn't even think about this until Layman's Journal, shout out to him by the way, had actually brought this up on his channel at one point. And I'm like, it's crazy how literally the black church is full of a bunch of people who have conservative values, but still are Democrat shills. Because think about all the times that these old Negroes in these churches will be shucking and jiving and buck dancing and all types of stuff when they have certain politicians who are running for office. Think about the times a lot of them were kumbayaing with Joe Biden when he was going to the black churches and pandering to their black asses and all types of shit. They were on that type of deal, y'all. Another thing, y'all, and this is something that I've also observed about the old Negroes over time. They're not just financially and also generationally problematic. They're also problematic from an emotional and a mental capacity as well, too. I mean, think about it, y'all. The holidays are coming up. I mean, literally, it's about to be Thanksgiving in 2 days. And there's a lot of y'all who are dreading going to Thanksgiving dinner because, you got a bunch of old Negroes who are going to be sitting at the table with you, asking you a bunch of questions, getting your business, and basically just treating you like shit. There's a lot of you all who are walking around and you're like, I ain't about to go to my family's place for the holiday because they be acting like this, they be acting like that. Let's be real. And that's because, again, I want to be clear. These old Negroes know that they do not have anything to show for when it comes to doing anything that's actually tangible for their progeny or for future generations. So the only thing that they try to do is say, well, why don't y'all come on over for dinner? And then they basically stuff your face with a bunch of processed foods that you don't need, although they may be good. You don't need that shit because they really don't have anything else to really offer you. And as quiet as it's kept, it's not even worth it because even if you go there, you still have to deal with their nonsense, the stuff that they may say, the way they may talk to you, boundary issues and all this other stuff. They get into your business. It's a bunch of fighting. It's a bunch of drama. It's a bunch of, they talk to you crazy. You defend yourself and then they're still calling it disrespect. These are the types of things that a lot of people deal with when it comes to a lot of these old Negroes. It's almost as if they have not done anything, but then still demand respect, even when they can't even give you basic decency. And that right there, family, that right there is what we call an ego. You have an ego when you believe you are entitled to respect when you really haven't done anything for real. And the old Negro issue even extends to the pro-black community. And y'all probably already know what I'm going to talk about. That's right, I'm going to be talking about the James Small situation. For those of you all who have not really been paying attention to this, because again, a lot of the pro-black community probably knows this by now, there's been this thing where James Smalls, who was a Pan-Africanist, was going around saying that FBA equals CIA and FBA equals FBI. And he had a lot of stuff, I think, to say about Tariq Nasheed as well, too. But regardless, he had a lot of choice words and disrespect and contempt for foundational Black Americans. Now, I won't go into that piece and my thoughts so much on that per se, but I do want to talk about the lesson and what I grabbed from what has happened with this controversy. One of the things I noticed, and this is a pattern that I see, and I guess in this case with the pro-Black community, and then also even with the church, is that there's this issue with these old Negroes where they do not like to pass the torch. And that's an ego thing. That goes back to ego. They do not like to basically say, I'm going to give you the game. I'm going to give you the skills. I'm going to give you the things that you need so you're able to build an empire to keep the family going. They don't like to pass the torch. They like to keep the torch until that motherfucker burns out. That's really what it kind of boils down to with them. I bring that up to basically say a lot of them get so big into their ego, they'll even destroy the people who are coming up who could take on the torch that they're supposed to be passing. And they'll try to destroy them because of the fact that they want to continue to lead something. There's a level of jealousy. They see that, a lot of us are young, a lot of us are vibrant, a lot of us want to do things that are constructive. We have great ideas, we have great movement and all this other stuff. So they a lot of times have contempt for that, and they show it in different ways. So some of the ways that they may show it is they may go and they may talk and sneak this and create drama and psychoanalyze like your life and all this other stuff. Because going back to my example about the church, that pastor who I told you was going around talking about some Joe Biden wasn't a bad guy, quote unquote. He also was talking about other people who were in the church and how they didn't have their house together. They didn't have their stuff together and all this other stuff. So he was talking about some of the other people who were in the church, despite the fact that they were going to be the ones who were probably going to be leading the church once he was gone. And a lot of times they do this because they're almost taking on somewhat of a parent to child type of role. So they see themselves as somebody's pseudo parent. So when they're sizing up and they're breaking down, someone who's younger than them, whether that be a Gen Xer, whether that be a millennial, whether that be a Z or whatever you want to call them, they're doing that because, again, they're assuming a pseudo parent to child type of role. So they'll say things to talk down to them, to disrespect them and things like that, because they see themselves as this authority figure, because that's their ego speaking. And again, what I've noticed is that a lot of these systems that people don't want to believe in or don't want to invest in, whether again it be the church, whether it be pro-blackness, whatever it is, are things that people avoid because the leadership has set a poor example of what those things should look like on a functional basis. So that's really the problem at the end of the day. A lot of them really see a lot of people who are younger as their competition. That's the big problem with a lot of these old Negroes. They see that there's young Black people, and we're specifically in the pro-Black community, who are doing things that are actually constructive, vibrant, and different than what they may have been able to do, especially with the times changing. And the combination between their ego, them being out of touch, and them, again, just trying to maintain some type of relevance, given the fact that, again, they're aged out and they're older, a lot of them have a lot of contempt. So they'll try to do and say things that, again, will keep them relevant and also maybe keep them where they have people underneath their thumb because, again, they've created a pseudo parent to child relationship. If I talk down about this person or to this person and whatnot, I've already harvested enough respect from people without really doing any damn thing that people are just going to just love me and they're going to support me no matter what I say because I'm older. And if I give constructive criticism, they can automatically assume that that's wisdom. Although often it's, again, just them being messy and creating drama because of their ego. Don't get me wrong. Professor Smalls has done some things that are actually good. And he does believe in the plight of Black unity. But again, there's a lot of hypocrisy. And I really studied a lot of what happened in this situation. And there's a few things that I need to call out. And if you are in the pro-Black community and you are watching this video, you need to hear what I'm about to say. A lot of y'all have this problem real bad. And I really feel the need to just dig into y'all about this. There's so many of you all who go googly eye when you see somebody who is older. You automatically assume everybody who is older, alive, and in decent spirits is an elder unless they do something that is directly coonish. So a lot of y'all were just flabbergasted by the fact that James Smalls would act this way. Instead of assuming that there are a lot of old niggas that are out there and there's a lot of us who are basically not really knowing what to do because the torch has not been passed to us. We have not been given the tangible skills to be able to carry the torch. And we've been really left in the dark. So a lot of you all are sitting there like, I can't believe he would do that. I mean, I had so much respect for him. Y'all got to stop doing that shit. Here's the bottom line, y'all. These old Negroes are a lot of times pretending to be elders. And you all have to stop all this micro apologizing and all this other stuff when you were digging into them, because I'm not doing all that damn apologizing. The reality is that they need to hear what I'm saying, and you need to hear what I'm saying about your behavior and your worship for them. Because part of the reason why they go on and they have this ego and they act this way is because you enable it. You all enable it because you allow them to go around and act like they're deserving of respect when they're just individuals who are aged out trying to stay relevant and have contempt for you and will even stab you in the back in order to, again, stay relevant. There were a lot of y'all who saw the Professor Smalls video and heard everything that was going on. And a lot of y'all were making excuses too for what was happening with Professor Smalls. And a lot of you all were saying stuff like, somebody probably, convinced him of A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. The reality is that I saw this stuff coming because there were videos in the past where he actually, talked about how he saw that, Tariq had this contempt for Africans, Caribbeans, like from his perspective. And he already was in that direction of, we shouldn't talk about Black immigrants no matter what they do. So he already was kind of talking that nonsense. So a lot of people were going around and they were saying that somebody must have gotten his ear and that type of thing. I've talked to a few people who basically said that, and they probably did. But here's the thing. A lot of people are kind of being apologists to a certain extent about what happened with Professor Smalls. They're going back and they're trying to blame, the tethers for what happened. They're trying to say that, they manipulated him. They did this, they did that. But see, this is the thing y'all need to understand. He most likely gave them a kind ear. And what I mean by that is he probably was there to listen to that nonsense, or at least made them feel comfortable where they can go and they can say these things to him. And now he's feeding that type of thing back. Now, here's where the ego and the selfishness comes in, like I said, with the old Negroes and the behaviors that they exhibit. When it comes to Professor Smalls, he knew that the money was drying up a little bit, and he had to kind of get in good with some of them folks in Africa because he had his hotels in Africa and all this other stuff that he was trying to, continue to get popping. So, he had to kind of say some things and do some things that would keep him kind of in a good light, because again, it would go back to hypocrisy if that was not what was going on. Because for him to go around and talk about FBA equals CIA, did Professor Smalls ever say that Jamaican was CIA? Did he ever say that Ghanaian was CIA? Because the thing is that Foundational Black Americans are a culture of people. It's what people used to call African Americans before a lot of us delineated and then created purpose around our specific lineage. But my point is that he would never go and do that with all of these other immigrant groups that he's actually defending. You're somebody who believes in the unity of black people and not disrespecting black people. Why are you so quick to actually disrespect foundational Black Americans? Because even in that video, he said some things that were actually disparaging about the community in general and some of the behaviors and habits and things that we do. But when a immigrant is called a tether because they're actually samboing, then all of a sudden we draw the line when it comes to disrespect. Point in saying this is that y'all have got to stop apologizing and excusing that type of behavior. What he did was on purpose. Full stop. But on a serious note, black people in general have to stop having a God complex when it comes to elders, quote unquote, or just, as I said, old niggas. And the reason why I say this is because there's a lot of you all who are walking around acting like, for example, your parents are gods. You're seeing them as people who could never do any wrong. And then whenever you see somebody who is older, you act the same way around them. But the reality is your parents are just normal human beings like you and me, meaning that they're prone to faults and also doing things that are wrong. But a lot of you all will turn a blind eye and act like they are helpless and they're children who are naive and don't know what they're doing just because they have browbeat you into respecting them. And I put that in quotations because really what it is fear. You've grown up believing that if you say anything against someone who is older, that it is a sign of disrespect. And that needs to seriously be debunked. Accountability is reserved for everybody, regardless of age. My final advice when it comes to the old Negroes is to charge their asses to the game. And that's it. A lot of y'all are trying to change them, make them more codified, make them want to do things that are helpful to the community. And they're just really not cut like that. And the last thing that you need to do is to stop acting like there's someone who is helpless, someone who is stupid, someone who doesn't have all their wits about them. These Negroes know exactly what they're doing. They're just not trying to do it. And I'm not saying don't love them. I'm not saying don't go around them. All I'm saying is you need to understand where they stand and then move accordingly as what is best for you with that information. Although we weren't passed the torch properly, it's time for us to be the examples that we wish we would have seen in these so-called elders that we had who were supposed to be setting the example for us instead of continuously letting us down time and time and time a damn again. All right, y'all, hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed what I had to say, and I definitely will have more to come in the future, so make sure you stay tuned. In the meantime, I would love it if you liked this video, subscribed, and also shared, and hit the bell icon so you get notifications for whenever I come out with new content on this channel. And then when you're finished, I would love it if you left me a comment below. That way I can get back to whatever it is that you had to say about this topic. Other than that, I will talk to y'all later. Peace out, y'all.